In the book of Judges, there was no leader apparently, and as a result there was anarchy and chaos, and the nation was in a bad state. There was no coordinated effort, everyone just running around doing their own thing. Judges 21:25, in those days, Israel had no leader. And everyone what? He was right in his own eyes. It was just anarchy and chaos. Proverbs 29 verse 18, where there is no vision, people what? Perish. Proverbs 29:18 again in the TNIV, where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. Just do their own thing. Now here's the point. Where there is a vision to be cast, there is always a primary leader who will cast that vision. And so just read through the Bible, read through history, Moses, Joshua, Nehemiah, read through history, you'll find leaders, primary leaders casting, and senior pastors will be those people also. And where there is no senior leader, or the senior leader is recalcitrant about casting this vision, fulfilling his God-given responsibility, there will be chaos. There always will. And so oversight and coordination. So number one, it's management, risk management, and compliance. Number two, I need to do churches more than Sundays. A lot of folk think it's just Sundays and the building's empty. Our place is never empty. Look at that big sign down the front with all those little circles. I'll stop and have a look at it sometime. And it's talking about that very issue. There are ministries happening here every day of the week, and to facilitate the ministries that fill this campus every day of the week, there are leaders, both paid and volunteer. So, for instance, Tuesday, I think there would probably be 120 people on campus Tuesday. I think that's when my roof guy turned up to give me the quote, the new building, and he said, "What's going on here?" I said, "Come in Tuesday. It's a playgroup. It's our playgroup. It's just happening every day." Then Wednesday, probably about 100 people here, mops. And then Thursday, we did another playgroup because we just like to punish ourselves. We did it all over again. Another 100 odd people there. And then Fridays, as I said, it's frenetic, Alethea disappears from this main building over there before 4 o'clock to get ready for the onslaught of the first lot that come. And that's the kids' club, and then they disappear. By 5:30, the next lot arrives. We're stepping up a bit now from kids' club to older kids. Judy, Steve's there, he knows what he's one of the volunteers, key person. And then when they leave at 7, it gets so serious you don't want to be on campus. I have been several times because I have a grandson I pick up and I see what goes on here. And you ought to fear, really, if you're here. It just happens. People here all the time. You understand what I'm saying? You thought it just happened Sunday. Church is way more than Sunday. It just is. And the leaders that make all of this happen every day of the week, there will be a point person in our setting. That point person is me to manage and lead the staff and the ministry to make so it's all going in the same direction. There is no conflict here. Staff meetings, weekly reports, annual performance reviews, coordination, and ensuring that everyone is on the same page, moving in the same direction as a team. If this was a school, I would be the principal. That's why students, if I need a meeting, which I don't then have it in my office because if you came to the principal's office, I'll take you out for a coffee. No way, I can give you a thrashing. I can talk to you and encourage you over a coffee. If this was a school, I would be. If this was a business, I would be the CEO. If this, well, we get to it. Coordination and accountability, and of course, in all of this, there must be care for God's family. There's going to be care. And who's going to do all this? I need to say that if there's going to be valid care, that super senior pastor certainly won't be able to do it all. Studies have shown that the most any one individual can do in terms of the care that any community of people need is 50 if he's super senior pastor. And even then it's going to be fairly thin on the ground, minimal pastoral care. And God never intended care to be done by one individual, That's why the New Testament is filled with all those wonderful one another's, like love one another, bear one another's burdens, pray for one another, greet one another with a holy kiss, such a lovely one. That's said 3 or 4 times, and there's all those one another's. And then the Bible talks about not only meeting publicly on Sundays, but meeting from house to house. In small groups. Acts 20 verse 20, publicly and from house to house. And then the leadership lesson that Moses learned from his father-in-law Jethro, people, counsel them all. He was never doing anything. How can he make the next strategic move to move this bunch of people from Egypt to the Promised Land? He's always in his tent doing counselling. He can never make any strategic planning because he's never got any time. He's always doing this stuff. And so his father-in-law came along, and this became God's plan, not just for Moses, not just for his day, but for us in all areas. Exodus 18:21, select capable men, gender generic, from among the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And of course, tens would just fit in nicely with our connect groups, and then of course whoever oversees the connect group leaders, you've gone up to another level, the thousands or the hundreds perhaps. Exodus 18:22, in terms of care, have them, that's the people, bring every difficult case to you, and the simple cases they are to decide for themselves. So most of the stuff you get done in your small group. What would be the difficult ones? Things like death, divorce, dire needs, distress, well, start with D anyway. Down, they'll end up on my desk. But the rest of them will decide before they get there, because those small groups are just doing a fantastic job. And they are, aren't they, Pastor Les? Just fantastic. So in those groups of 10, in our city, that they are the connect groups. And Pastor Les, I've gone to another level there, reporting to me, oversees these groups and coaches the leaders of these groups in care principles and in leadership principles. And Pastor Les has a big, big vision for our connect groups. We're going to have at least 20 of them next year. I think by the way we're going, probably go right through and have many more than that. And within all of this accountability structures, I am accountable to the board of governance. And that board has established policies in which I lead and minister. And that's what the board does, is do policy governance. Now, I want to backtrack. Let's set up all that there for you. And you're with me now? Good. You know, I didn't give my life to Christ until I was about age 30. I knew some stuff about God, like as most people do, about Jesus Christ going on the cross and all that. I knew some stuff about that, but I never surrendered my life to Christ. I had no intention of doing so. But, you know, I think a lot of people are like that. They know a whole lot of stuff. But as I look back, you know, God had his hand on me all the while. You know? And I think about when I was a little fella, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe. My parents took the whole family, a Methodist, back then the Methodists were big on evangelism. They're kind of like the Hillsong of today. And the Methodist evangelist came to town. His name was Ivan Alpha. I'll never forget. I was 7 or 8 years of age. I remember listening to that evangelist. And man preached with such fervour and passion. And he lit up the fires of hell. I didn't want to go there. And he brightened the lights of heaven. And I didn't want to go there. And he called for people to surrender their lives to Christ. I didn't do that. Isn't that a funny thing? I remember telling some of my siblings after, I said, you know, one day I'm going to be an evangelist. That's what I'm going to be. I feel God called me to be an evangelist tonight. But I didn't even surrender to Christ, if you get my drift. And there's no way you're going to be an evangelist until you've surrendered to Christ. And at age 30, the gospel came to me in power, and I surrendered my life to Christ. And I was like a Jonah running away, you know. Sent to Nineveh to preach the gospel, and I went the other way. Put all my money and all my stuff in going the other way, and I totally went the other way, I've got to tell you. And at age 30, I surrendered to Christ, and God came back and said, remember, you're going to be an evangelist? And I was like, go away, God. That was back then. I'm older now. But I surrendered my life to Christ, and what could I do? He called me to be an evangelist. And I could do no other. I have no idea, I've got to tell you. And when you sign up for whatever God's got for you, you have no idea. I just thought, I'm going to preach the gospel. And everything will be in place for me. The lectern will be there, the water will be there, the little table will be there, the whiteboard will be there, and I won't do anything else. I'll just rock up and preach the gospel. And I'll go all over the countryside, I'll go wherever it takes me. And everyone else has set it all up. I won't do anything. You know, I won't do any organisation, anything. I'll just be there. And I began to preach like that. You know, I got saved. I began to preach on Saturday mornings in Midland Junction Town Centre. They'd set up a platform for me, and I'd step up the platform, got the microphone, and I'd preach the gospel. And we saw people got saved. And that wasn't enough. Then I went to the prisons. I I went to Warraloo Prison and began to preach the gospel there. I went to Bartonsville Prison and began to preach the gospel there to inmates. Then I went to Carnet Prison, I preached the gospel there. And I thought, this is the way it's going to be. And then I did the gifts inventory as I got more into ministry, and I found out that my primary my primary gift was leadership, and then teaching, and then administration, and then evangelism. And so I am the leader. I am the administrator. I am the teacher. But I don't just preach. I don't just do weddings and funerals and stuff. In fact, I'm trying to raise the staff up that they're going to do all the weddings and funerals. That's my plan, pastorally here.